Hello, and welcome to our February webinar about remote data replication and transferring files to remote sites. We're planning to have this for about 30 minutes. I will be speaking. My name is John Tkachevsky. I am the co-founder and president of Untitled Software. Untitled Software is the creator of FileCatalyst products. We've started this in 2001, this business, and we've been doing file transfers ever since. If you want any new information or information about cool new features that we're developing, always check out our blog or visit us at one of our user forums. Our next user forum will be actually on Monday next week, on February 25th. In London, UK, at King's Cross. So if you're interested, we have user forums pretty much every quarter in different parts of the world. This is the next one. Stay tuned for information for the next user forums. Quickly over the agenda. So data replication, it is a pretty complex topic. Many master theses and PhD theses have been written on this type of information. I'm going to try to stay fairly high level, give you some functional information that you can, apply right away. We'll also I'll talk about more about different pitfalls and gotchas when you're replicating data, and how our tools, FileCatalyst tools, can help you. We'll also talk about file system events and what that means for your replication and mirroring data. And finally, I'll give you also a demo and explain some of the licensing options for our FileCatalyst products. If you have any questions during this process, please just feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar window, and I will go through them after I finish my presentation. So the data replication is really the concept that if you have a folder sitting in one location and you want to replicate it in a different location, you want to replicate this folder in a different location, geographical location. So it's similar, I guess, to what you would do locally, a copy, if you want to copy a folder from one spot to another, but with the difference is then when you copy everything, and replication will only, grab the stuff that has been changing in the folder and applying that. And the big point here is that it has to go over a wide area network, so different locations. When you're looking at data replication, you must be looking for a solution that first of all must be able to handle tree structures and complex directory tree structures. So you could have folders within folders within folders, 10 folders deep, and the solution has to be able to handle that. You have to also look at a solution that can handle thousands or even millions of files, depending on the size of your data structure. And once again, the solution has to be able to handle zeros KB files, or very, very small files, up to several terabytes of file sizes. So this is all what you have to think of when you're replicating data, is that the file sets can vary a lot, and the data structures can be different as well. And finally, the big thing that I'll talk about more is that you want something that works at a file system level. You don't want a solution that keeps on scanning the folder and generating a list recursively this way, because it will eat up a lot of memory and a lot of CPU cycles trying to identify what has changed. So you want something that can monitor at a file system level. Where can you use remote data replication? Well, there are a lot of things. The biggest one that I think most of our clients use, it's called remote backups. So if you imagine you have an office and you want to back up all your information to an offsite disaster recovery server, you can do this with using data replication. Imagine if you have multiple offices and you want all your satellite or regional offices to have access to certain directories or certain data sets. You can replicate this, use replication as well into these offices, and then the access to those files from the regional offices will be much faster because everything will be local to them instead of trying to go over the internet to get this information. Once again, the big thing is if you're dealing with a lot of recipients or a lot of end nodes where you want to move files to the edge, you want to have the data as close as possible where your consumers are, and this is where mirroring comes a lot. Is very important feature for content distribution networks, where you have edge servers and all the data is moved from like one master central location and propagated onto the entire content delivery network. So clients can pick that up. Once again, there's a lot of content delivery network is a completely topic on its own, but the replication of data over wide area network touches quite a bit on that as well. So let's just get something clear here that there's a difference between replication and sync. Replication or mirroring, as we call it, usually involves a single master and multiple slave nodes. So imagine you have one master directory in your head office and you want to replicate that down to every single regional office. The regional office is not allowed to change those files, they are only allowed to access them. Sync is much more complicated because then you have actually every node in the system acts as a master and anyone can edit any file and everything has to get propagated across all the nodes. There has to be some strict rules on how to handle the collisions. So if you imagine I'm editing a large file here in Ottawa, Canada, and our branch office is editing the same file in UK in London, there's going to be collisions. So the system would have to figure this out. And of course the system gets more and more complex as you add more and more nodes to it. So if you have 5 nodes, 6 nodes, 100 nodes, this gets much more harder. We don't recommend to use sync in our FileCatalyst products. We have not designed a solution for that. We've seen some clients doing it, but it's not something we recommend, and there are very strict rules that you would have to follow that we don't necessarily enforce in the application. So the replication tools that we'll be talking about is FileCatalyst Direct. It will be the FileCatalyst Direct server and the Hotfolder application. The Hotfolder is a client application that connects to the server to exchange the data. So this is what we'll be talking about here. Some of the replication features that we provide in FileCatalyst Hotfolder is, first of all, you have your scheduling and scheduling of a task. A task is being basically your replication task, and the bandwidth scheduling. So for example, if you have an office that during the office hours you don't want to use up your bandwidth, you can have the bandwidth scheduler go very slowly, and then after the office hours the scheduler will pick up the speed and use up your bandwidth to move the files to the offsite disaster recovery site. You can also just schedule the task that not to run at all during the day, but most likely our clients will just turn down the replication to a trickle during the day and speed it up to full bandwidth in the after hours. File system events. Once again, I'm stressing this point because you don't want to be generating you don't want to be scanning and generating large directory file lists. You want a system that is fast, that as soon as a file is changed, that file is right away picked up and transferred. You also want something that has delta. This is a feature that we call delta, but it's similar to rsync, where if I already transferred a file and there's a newer version of the file, I will be only sending the difference, so the delta of the file. So let's say I have a 1 gig file and I changed 50 megs in that file, the delta will be roughly 50 megs. So instead of resending the full file again. You want to have appropriate monitoring and notification. So if your mirroring stops or shuts down, you want to be notified, and you also want to be able to see exactly what has been done with what has been going on with the monitoring. So you want to have good notifications. Zip chunking is another feature we also provide in Hotfolder. So imagine you have thousands of small files. They're all small text files that you need to transfer to offsite. Instead of sending one file at a time, we can zip them into, let's say, 50 files in one batch, send those 50 files across, and unzip them. This speeds up the process by reducing the number of single file transfers, because every time you transfer one file, well, you still have to open a socket, and start a transfer. Here you will be doing this only, every 50 or 100 files, whatever you set the setting to. MD5 is important because you want to make sure that nothing arrives corrupt on the other end, so you want to always have MD5. MD5 we provide us at the, you can set it as something that you can set up at the end of the transfer or during the transfer. So every time we receive a block of data, we can do an MD5 checksum on the file to compare that we indeed received, the data we received is identical to what the sender has sent. And file transfer cache is once again another feature in Hotfolder that allows you to remember, and Hotfolder will remember what it sent and will not send these files again. So this prevents, again, a continuous loop of sending files. So with all these features, this is where we can put together a very good data replication solution with Hotfolder and the server. Another thing you have to keep in mind when you're looking at replication is that what operating system are you targeting? So of course there are some file attributes that are the same across all platforms, namely file name, date created, date modified, and most likely owner. Those will be attributes that will be, doesn't matter what operating system you're on, you will have these attributes. But then every operating system will have its own set of attributes. So when you're replicating, for example, folders on macOS, you want to make sure that your extended attributes are intact. Your resource forks are kept. Your permissions and the access control levels, or ACLs, are also kept. Once again, you could send the data, but if the syncing solution does not provide support for this, those files on the other end will be useless, even if they arrived and MD5 passes and everything. Same thing on Windows. You have also your attributes, your read-only, archive, hidden, system, security attributes for the files. Once again, an rsync solution has to be able to, support some of these. And Linux, once again, you have your permissions for group, user, and other, which I guess also applies for macOS because it's really a Linux, very similar to a Linux-based system. So these permissions, you have to keep in mind that all of this has to replicate not just the file, but all these other properties as well. What about if you have a backup server runs Linux and all your production stuff is on Windows? What happens then? Well, you're going to lose all these extended attributes. There's no way to maintain these attributes when you move from different OS to different OS. But maybe it's okay. Once again, you might be only working with image files, or you might be working with videos, or you might be working with large text or database files. Once again, it could be irrelevant to your project. So it really depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to back up entire servers or entire workstations, most likely you want to have the attributes. But if you're just backing up projects or project files, it's maybe not necessary. File system events, this is another thing that we provide. So file system event is something that Hotfolder can attach to the operating system it's running on, and as soon as a change is made within the folder that our Hotfolder is set up to listen to, Hotfolder will get this, be notified, and will automatically start transferring this data. So if we have a folder of, let's say, 1 million files, and one file changes, we don't have to list 1 million files and figure out which one has changed. You can do this. You can do this right away with file system events. There's a good strategy sometimes that you can do, and this is what I'm going to do in our demo, is that when you transfer the files, you turn off the file system events first, and then you turn it back on once you have the directory synced. And finally, we also support something called a Hotfolder to Hotfolder replication. So imagine you have a server with 2 Hotfolders attached to the server, and you don't want the data to be replicated on the server, you just want it on the hot folders, so you can use the server as a bypass. So the connectivity is going to go through the server, but the data will be only replicated on one of the hot folders versus the server. The demo here I'm showing is concentrating only on replicating from hot folder to the server, just to keep it simple, but this is an option you have as well. So to get to the demo, so what I'm going to do here is I already have my FileCatalyst server running. I'll be using this user here called user. And if you can see here, the user is already defined a path here to be going to see users admin desktop sync demo mirror. So if I open this folder here, here are the files I have. So this is going to be my this is going to be my mirroring site. This is where the files are going to end up. So that's for the server side. I really just created a user. I don't need anything else. On the hot folder side, I created first a site that connects to the server. This is all local, so of course it's going to be just localhost. I created my master folder. So you imagine this is where my master is sitting. It's in desktop sync demo master. And if I go in here, I will see here the same files are also sitting. So now what I'll do is I will go into my mirror site here, and I will just delete these files here so we can do this properly. We can do a proper sync. Okay. So I have my hot folders now created. My set is created. Now I'm going to create a task, and this is where the task for hot folder is. There's a few properties we need to change when we're doing this for syncing. So I'm going to call this mirror. I'm just going to call this mirror task. I'm going to select that my master folder I want to sync to my server, and now I'm just going to leave this as user triggered. As I mentioned, I'm going to first sync and then turn on the monitoring. Here on this step, I'm not changing anything on the bandwidth controls. Verify integrity, I'm going to use MD5 checksum, and it's going to be after the file, but this is where I can change it to on the fly or concurrent. Will show activity details. I will enable incremental. So once again, if my data is already, let's say, replicated, I can enable this and say transfer file deltas. Or if I ship the hard drive first and I just want to keep the folders in sync, I can also I can enable that as well. Now in this place here, I'm going to enable my cache. So this is what allows me to rememorize what I already transferred, so I don't keep on transferring the same data over and over. And I'm going to also delete files on destination not existing on source. This is by default disabled, because we don't users by default, if they delete a file on the sending end, to delete those files on the receiving end. So normally this is disabled, but you would have to enable it if you want to do mirroring. And finally, this last piece here, I'm just going to finish this task. Let's just do this again. And my task is not coming up. Oh, there you go. There it is. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this one here. Yeah. So now once I have this task created, all I have to do is just click on execute task, and now the files will be moved from this is my mirrored folder where I'm moving the files, and now all the task is moving all the files over to my mirroring remote site. Now keep in mind this is all done locally here for webinar purposes, but normally you would have 2 different machines handling all of this. So I'm sending the files. As you can see here, the logs will show you that you're sending the files. You're doing an MD5 on the file, and we're basically syncing this entire folder right now. Okay, and we're done. So here's my memory, my mirroring site. Now I'm just going to bring up my master, my master folder list here, and my sync, and let's see what happens. So if I go into here, and now let's say delete this file, and I go back into my hot folder, and I rerun this, what it did is that this is my master where I deleted the file. This is my sync demo mirror. Now this file got also deleted. So now you can see every time I make a change to this folder, I got to go manually click and tell it, okay, run again to sync yourself. So there's that option to manually always sync a folder. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into this task here, and I'm going to go into enable this task to be fully automated. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit this task, and I'm going to change my schedule to be always on file system events. So there are some limitations with the file system events. So if you're monitoring a local folder on the machine, it will always work. If you're monitoring a network folder, any changes that are made via the system that is attached to this network drive will be picked up by file system events. However, if another computer comes in and changes files on that folder, those file system events will not be picked up. So ideally, you always want to run this on the same machine where the actual physical folder resides. So as you can see here in the logs, now I'm monitoring, and I'm ready to, anytime I make a change now to my master, so let's say I'll pick up a file here. You can see here that the task realized instantly that there is a file, and the file got moved from the master to the slave or to the mirror site. And same thing goes if I now go and rename this file. Let's say I'll call it test demo. This right away here, you can see a rename was detected on a file, and now my slave automatically got renamed. So everything will always keep on saying your deletes, your renames, your copy of new files. So this is in sort of in a few words how the sync works. The application we're talking here about is FileCatalyst Direct, the FileCatalyst Direct server in a hot folder. So the way we provide, you can provide you with a free 30-day trial of the software. All you have to go is just visit our website and go to /trial, and enter your information. We'll provide you this. The licensing options, we have also provided you a number of different ways to license our syncing technology. One is to buy a perpetual on-site license that you own for life. That license is usually about $10,000. It's going to be less or more depending on the options and the bandwidth and concurrent connections, but that's about a one-time fee you'll have to pay. You can also have a leased model. So once again, the leased licensing applies a lot with cloud services where you don't necessarily have a big upfront budget to start an IT project. but you do have a monthly budget or operating costs, so you can we can also provide you a leased license, roughly also for $500, depending on the features and software you want to use. And finally, if you don't have a server at all and you just want to have a hosted system, we can provide you a hosted license, and that's about $200 per month, and that will get you an account on our FileCatalyst Direct server, which is a shared server. Your files will be private to your own deployment, so not every hosted client has their own privacy, but you're just basically getting that one user account on the server, and then the Hotfolder application is included. So thank you for attending this webinar. I have a few more minutes here that I can go over some questions. Let me just open up this here and let me see if there's any questions. One question is the $10,000. I think that's going to get you about 30 megabits, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit more. I'm not 100% sure, but it's about that. So the question was how much the $10,000, how much bandwidth you can get, and I think it's 30 or 40 megabits, maybe 45. So that's one question here. Second question here I have from Josh. The question is when we do not use transfer cache incrementals. So incrementals, the transfer cache should be pretty much always on. What you can do, if you're, let's say, in a position where you already have, let's say you shipped a drive to a remote location, and you know that your local folder and that folder that you shipped are identical, what you can do at this point, you can do something called generate cache on both on the hot folder, and this will then the hot folder will then consider that all the files are already perfectly synced and will not try to resync this again. So an incremental, once again, is used if you're doing a lot of edits. So if you're sending a file and you wanna do incrementals for rsync or if you're doing a lot of edits. Now, once again, if the files are changing a lot, let's say I'll give you an example. If the file is if you have a large file, 1 gig file, and once you change this file, every single little bit in the file has changed all throughout it, rsync is going to take a really long time to calculate and will still require you to send pretty much the entire data. Now, if the file has only certain file areas have changed, so let's say the end has changed or something right in the middle or right something at the end of the beginning of the file, then you can rsync will pick that up and then will work very well. So it just depends how it works. Analogy could be very good with this. It's, let's say, closed captioning with video. You could have closed captioning data included as metadata inside the video file, so it's not encoded in every frame. So let's say if your closed captioning has changed just a little bit, you will just change that little closed captioning metadata within the file. But now if closed captioning is encoded with every single frame, that will change the entire file pretty much, and then rsync is not going to really give you this much. It's actually going to make it slower because it has to calculate the deltas. I think that was the only 2 questions. If you oh, hold on, something else popped up here. Just a second, I'm just trying to get to your questions here. Okay, I see here questions about Autodesk files from Amal. I will make sure that our support guys will get in touch with you about replicating Autodesk files. And okay, so that's it for now, and please stay tuned with us for the next webinar in the next month or so. Thank you.